You are just useless and fat. You are not fit in my life. Go and find your level.
Kelvin just landed a $33 million deal, and the first thing he bought, a one-way ticket out of his marriage. He told his wife, Elena, that she was too fat for his new billionaire lifestyle. The suitcase hit the wet pavement with a thud, clothes spilling onto the driveway as rain began to fall. Elena stood there in shock, her hands trembling, asking Kelvin if this was some kind of cruel joke. He laughed, actually laughed, and told her it wasn't a joke, it was an upgrade. Behind him, standing in the doorway of the home Elena had worked 3 jobs to help pay for, was Kelvin's new reality, Sienna Cartel, a 23-year-old Instagram model with 2 million followers and zero interest in anything except Kelvin's newly acquired wealth. Sienna wrapped her arms around Kelvin's waist and asked if the fat one was finally leaving because she wanted to start redecorating immediately. Elena's face crumpled with humiliation and heartbreak. She'd spent 7 years with this man, put him through business school while working as a waitress during the day, a grocery store clerk in the evenings, and doing online data entry at night. She'd believed in him when no one else did, celebrated every small victory, and held him through every failure. And now, the moment he finally succeeded, he was throwing her away like garbage. Hello friends, welcome to our channel. If you're listening right now, help me prove something wrong. My colleague said I wouldn't even reach 10,000 subscribers, but I believe stories like this deserve to be heard. Help me show them that these tales matter and comment where you are watching from. Kelvin told Elena to take her things and disappear from his life because he was embarrassed to even be seen with her anymore. He said his new business partners were elite people, billionaires and CEOs, and he couldn't have them knowing he was married to someone who looked like her. Elena asked him if he remembered who paid for his MBA, who believed in him when he failed his first 3 business ventures, who held the family together when they had nothing. Kelvin shrugged and said that was then, this is now, and now he needed someone who matched his new status. What Elena didn't say, what she kept to herself even as her heart shattered, was that she knew exactly who his new business partners were. Because one of them was her father. Elena picked up her suitcase from the wet pavement with as much dignity as she could gather. She looked at Kelvin one last time and said, "You're going to regret this, and it's going to happen sooner than you think." Kelvin and Sienna both laughed at her. Sienna told her that threats from a desperate woman were just sad, and maybe Elena should focus on joining a gym instead of playing fortune teller. Elena didn't respond. She simply walked down the driveway, pulled out her phone, and made a call. The voice that answered was deep and concerned, asking, "Princess, what's wrong? I can hear it in your voice." Elena's composure finally broke and she started crying, telling her father that the test was over and Kelvin had failed in the worst possible way. Her father's voice went ice cold when he asked what happened. Elena explained everything, how Kelvin had just signed the Maxwell global contract, how the ink wasn't even dry before he decided Elena wasn't good enough for his new lifestyle, how he'd literally thrown her belongings onto the street in front of his mistress. There was a long silence on the other end of the line before her father spoke again. He said, "Baby girl, I'm 10 minutes away. We were already coming to finalize the partnership signing, but it seems we need to have a very different conversation with Mr. Thompson instead." Elena asked her father to please not do anything illegal, and he chuckled darkly, saying he wouldn't need to, that Kelvin had just destroyed himself and didn't even know it yet. Back at the house, Kelvin was popping champagne with Sienna, toasting to his brilliance and his new life. Sienna asked if he felt bad at all about the wife, and Kelvin said absolutely not, that Elena had been holding him back for years with her lack of ambition and her appearance. He said now that he had real money, he deserved a woman who turned heads, someone like Sienna. She kissed him and said she was so glad he finally saw his worth. Kelvin's phone buzzed with a message from Maxwell Global confirming that the executive team would arrive in 8 minutes for the ceremonial contract signing and celebration. Kelvin told Sienna to change into something stunning because they were about to meet some of the most powerful people in the tech industry. Kelvin spent the next 7 minutes making sure everything was perfect. He'd hired caterers who set up an elaborate spread in the dining room, he'd bought a new Armani suit specifically for this moment, and he'd even hired a photographer to document the signing because he wanted content for his LinkedIn and Instagram. Sienna came downstairs wearing a tight red dress that cost more than Elena's monthly salary used to be, and Kelvin told her she looked perfect, exactly the kind of woman who should be on his arm. Through the window, Kelvin saw 3 black SUVs with tinted windows pulling up to his house. His heart raced with excitement. This was it, the moment his life officially changed forever. He told Sienna that these people were about to make them richer than they'd ever imagined, that the 33 million was just the beginning, and if he played this right, Maxwell Global could be a $100 million relationship over the next 5 years. The SUVs parked in perfect formation and Kelvin rushed to the door, ready to greet his new partners with the kind of charm and confidence that had won him the deal in the first place. But when the doors opened, the first person to step out wasn't a business executive. It was Elena. She'd changed clothes somehow, now wearing an elegant designer outfit that Kelvin had never seen before, her hair and makeup professionally done. And she carried herself with a confidence that seemed completely different from the broken woman he'd kicked out 20 minutes ago. Kelvin's smile faltered. He asked Elena what she was doing here and why she was getting out of Maxwell Global's vehicles. Elena didn't answer him. Instead, she stood aside as 8 more people exited the SUVs. Security personnel in black suits took positions around the property, and then the final door opened. Out stepped Chairman Richard Maxwell, the 72-year-old billionaire founder of Maxwell Global, the man whose signature was on Kelvin's $33 million contract, one of the 50 richest people in the world. And he walked straight to Elena and hugged her, calling her his precious daughter. Kelvin felt the ground shift beneath his feet. Kelvin's brain couldn't process what he was seeing. Elena, his wife Elena, who he'd just called too fat and too embarrassing for his new lifestyle, was being embraced by Chairman Richard Maxwell, the man who just made Kelvin a multimillionaire. Sienna whispered asking Kelvin what was happening, and he told her to shut up because he was trying to think. Chairman Maxwell kissed Elena's forehead and asked if she was okay, examining her like a concerned father checking his daughter for injuries. Elena nodded and said she was fine now that he was here. The chairman's expression hardened as he looked past Elena toward Kelvin, who stood frozen on his own doorstep. The chairman asked Elena to confirm if this was the man. And she nodded, saying yes daddy, that's Kelvin Thompson, my husband, or I guess my soon-to-be ex-husband. Kelvin's mouth went dry. He tried to speak but no words came out. Finally, he managed to stammer that there must be some misunderstanding, that he had no idea Elena was related to the chairman. Richard Maxwell's voice was like gravel when he responded, saying, "Oh, there's no misunderstanding, Mr. Thompson, you understood perfectly well when you threw my daughter's belongings onto the street and told her she wasn't good enough for you anymore." Kelvin started sweating despite the cool evening air. He tried to explain that it was a private matter between him and Elena, that business and personal life were separate things. The chairman laughed, but it was a sound completely devoid of humor. He said, "Mr. Thompson, you seem to be confused about something fundamental. There is no separation when you disrespect my family, everything becomes personal." He pulled out his phone and made a call, speaking to someone named Gerald. He said, "Gerald, this is Richard, I need you to execute immediate cancellation protocol on contract number 7742, the Thompson Tech Solutions Agreement, yes the $33 million one, cancel it effective immediately and blacklist the company from any future considerations." Kelvin's legs nearly gave out. He started begging, saying, "Please Chairman Maxwell, please let's talk about this, I didn't know, if I had known I never would have, please don't cancel the contract." Richard held up his hand for silence and Kelvin's mouth snapped shut. Chairman Maxwell looked at Kelvin with the kind of cold assessment that billionaires reserve for people they're about to crush. He said, "Mr. Thompson, let me tell you a story. 3 months ago, my daughter came to me with an unusual request. She said she'd been married for 7 years to a man who claimed to love her, but she wanted to test whether that love was real or conditional." Elena had watched Kelvin become increasingly focused on wealth and status, making comments about her appearance, suggesting she'd be prettier if she lost weight, hinting that she was becoming an embarrassment to his ambitions. So Elena proposed an experiment. She asked her father to offer Kelvin his dream contract, the kind of money and prestige that would reveal his true character. If Kelvin stayed loyal and loving to Elena even after achieving wealth, then she'd know his love was genuine and she could reveal her identity and they'd build an empire together. But if Kelvin showed his true colors, if he abandoned her the moment he got money, then she'd know she needed to leave before wasting any more of her life. The chairman gestured toward Kelvin and said, "Congratulations Mr. Thompson, you failed the test spectacularly." Kelvin tried to interrupt but Richard spoke over him. He said, "You didn't just fail, you failed with such cruelty and callousness that I'm genuinely shocked my daughter ever saw anything worth loving in you. You threw her belongings into the rain, mocked her appearance, brought your mistress into the home my daughter helped you purchase, and celebrated your betrayal with champagne." Sienna, who'd been silent until now, suddenly spoke up saying she didn't know any of this. that Kelvin told her he was divorced. Richard looked at her and said, "Young lady, I suggest you call an Uber because Mr. Thompson is about to have some very serious financial problems and won't be able to afford your company much longer." Sienna's face went pale as she realized she'd hitched herself to a sinking ship. She grabbed her purse and literally ran down the driveway without another word. Kelvin watched his new life sprint away in red heels, then turned back to the chairman with desperation in his eyes. He said he would do anything to fix this, that he loved Elena, that he made a terrible mistake. Elena finally spoke, her voice steady and strong. She said, "Kelvin, you don't love me, you never did, you loved what I could do for you, and the moment you didn't need me anymore, you discarded me without a second thought. If you're loving this story of justice, smash that like button and subscribe for more." Kelvin dropped to his knees on his own driveway, not caring how pathetic he looked, begging Elena to forgive him. He said he was stupid and blinded by success and he didn't mean any of the things he said. Elena looked down at him with an expression that was more sad than angry. She said, "Kelvin, yes, you did mean it, maybe you're sorry now because you realize what it's going to cost you, but 30 minutes ago when you thought I was just a nobody you could throw away, you meant every cruel word." Chairman Maxwell checked his watch and said, "Mr. Thompson, my legal team is already drawing up the contract termination documents, you'll be served within 72 hours, additionally, since you signed a morality clause that you clearly didn't bother reading. You'll be required to return the $2 million signing bonus you've already spent on, let me see," he consulted his phone, "a Porsche, a yacht membership, a down payment on a beach house, and approximately $80,000 in jewelry and clothes for your mistress." Kelvin felt like he was going to vomit. He'd spent almost all of the signing bonus already, planning to pay it back from the contract payments. Without the contract, he'd be millions in debt. But the chairman wasn't finished. He said, "Furthermore, Maxwell Global maintains relationships with every major tech firm in North America, Europe, and Asia, and I personally sit on the boards of 17 of them. I'll be making sure they all know about your character and judgment. I suspect you'll find the industry much less welcoming going forward." Kelvin realized he wasn't just losing one contract, he was being blacklisted from his entire career. Everything he'd worked for, everything Elena had sacrificed to help him build, was being destroyed in minutes. He looked at Elena with tears streaming down his face and said, "Please, 7 years has to mean something." Elena's own eyes welled up but her voice remained firm when she said, "It did mean something, Kelvin. It meant 7 years of me loving you unconditionally while you were conditionally waiting for something better to come along, and the moment it did, you showed me exactly how much those 7 years meant to you. They meant nothing." Chairman Maxwell put his arm around his daughter and said, "Elena, sweetheart, are you ready to go home?" Elena nodded. But before she left, she had one more thing to say. Elena walked up to Kelvin, who was still on his knees, and spoke quietly so only he could hear. She said, "You know what the saddest part is? I was going to tell you tonight. I was going to reveal everything and surprise you with the news that you'd married into one of the wealthiest families in the world. I had a whole celebration planned. But I told Daddy to wait and watch how you treated me first, and within an hour of signing that contract, you proved that you never loved me, you loved the idea of what I could provide." She paused, then continued, "I worked 3 jobs, Kelvin, 3 jobs for 5 years so you could get your MBA and start your business. I ate ramen noodles for dinner so you could afford to network at expensive restaurants. I wore the same 5 outfits for 2 years so you could buy proper suits for investor meetings, and you have the audacity to call me an embarrassment." Kelvin sobbed and said he was sorry over and over. Elena said, "I know you're sorry you got caught, sorry there are consequences, but you're not sorry for who you really are, and tonight you showed me exactly who that is." She turned and walked back to her father. Chairman Maxwell said, "Mr. Thompson, you'll be hearing from our attorneys. Please do not attempt to contact my daughter again or I'll add a restraining order to your growing list of legal problems." The Maxwell family and their security team began loading back into the SUVs. Kelvin, desperate and irrational, suddenly jumped to his feet and ran toward Elena shouting that she couldn't do this, that he had rights, that she'd been lying to him their whole marriage. 2 security guards intercepted him before he got within 10 feet of Elena, restraining him firmly but professionally. Chairman Maxwell's voice cut through the air like a whip when he said, "Mr. Thompson, if you take one more step toward my daughter, I will have you arrested for harassment, is that clear?" Kelvin stopped struggling, the reality of his complete powerlessness finally sinking in. Elena looked at him one last time and said, "Goodbye, Kelvin, I hope whatever you find in life makes you happy, but it won't be my father's money and it won't be me." The SUVs pulled away, leaving Kelvin standing alone in the driveway of a house he could no longer afford. The next 72 hours were a nightmare that Kelvin couldn't wake up from. The story leaked to the press almost immediately, not through the Maxwells who valued their privacy, but through Sienna who sold her story to a tabloid for $50,000. The headline read, "Tech Bro Dumps Wife for Supermodel, Loses $33 million Deal When Wife Turns Out to Be Billionaire's Daughter." Within hours, Kelvin was a viral sensation for all the wrong reasons. His social media was flooded with thousands of comments calling him an idiot, a user, and worse. Someone found Elena's old social media posts showing her working multiple jobs and created a thread documenting her sacrifice, which made Kelvin look even more heartless. His business phone wouldn't stop ringing, but it wasn't opportunities calling, it was partners pulling out, vendors canceling contracts, and investors demanding their money back. Thompson Tech Solutions, the company Kelvin had spent 7 years building with Elena's support, was collapsing in real time. His lawyer called with devastating news. The morality clause in the Maxwell Global contract was ironclad. Kelvin owed back the entire $2 million signing bonus within 90 days or face a lawsuit. The Porsche was being repossessed, the yacht club had revoked his membership and kept his deposit, and the beach house sale had fallen through with Kelvin losing his down payment. Even worse, 3 other companies that had been in negotiations with Kelvin had pulled their offers after Chairman Maxwell made some calls. Kelvin was being systematically erased from the tech industry. He tried calling Elena dozens of times but her number was disconnected. He drove to the Maxwell family estate but was stopped at the gate by security who informed him he was on a permanent banned list. He attempted to reach out through mutual friends only to discover that every single person in their social circle had sided with Elena once they learned the truth. Kelvin was completely alone. His parents called, having seen the news, and his mother cried asking how she'd raised a son who could be so cruel. His father simply said he was ashamed and hung up. Even his own family had turned against him. Kelvin sat in his house, surrounded by expensive things he could no longer afford, and realized he'd traded everything real for things that meant nothing. 6 weeks after the driveway confrontation, Kelvin's life had completely unraveled. Thompson Tech Solutions had filed for bankruptcy. The house was in foreclosure. He'd moved into a cheap studio apartment with furniture from Goodwill. Every job application he submitted was rejected, his name was poison in the industry. He'd applied to over 200 positions, including ones far below his qualification level, and received 0 offers. Chairman Maxwell's influence was absolute. Meanwhile, Elena was thriving. She'd filed for divorce and because of Kelvin's infidelity and abandonment, she was entitled to half of everything he owned, which was now mostly debt, so she waived all claims. She didn't need his money, she had her own. What she did take was her self-respect and her freedom. Elena had actually been working in disguise at a non-profit her father funded, testing whether she could build something meaningful separate from the family wealth. Now she was ready to step into her role at Maxwell Global, joining the executive team and using her experience and education to make a real impact. The media fell in love with her redemption story, the humble woman who'd worked 3 jobs and stayed kind despite having billions at her fingertips. She became a symbol of integrity and strength. Kelvin, desperate and broken, managed to get a message to Elena through her lawyer. He wrote a 10-page letter explaining his remorse, his realization of what he'd lost, his promise to spend the rest of his life making it up to her if she'd just give him one more chance. Elena read the letter once, then put it in a drawer and never responded. Her father asked if she wanted him to do anything about Kelvin's continued attempts at contact and Elena said no, that Kelvin's own choices had built his prison and he'd have to live in it. 3 months after the divorce was finalized, Elena attended a charity gala where she met Daniel Reeves, a veterinarian who ran a non-profit animal shelter and had no idea who her father was. Daniel liked Elena for her laugh, her kindness, and the way she volunteered at the shelter every Saturday. They started dating slowly, built on genuine connection rather than money or status. When Elena finally told Daniel about her family 6 months into their relationship, he said, "That's nice, but I fell in love with you, not your last name." It was everything Kelvin had never been. 1 year after the driveway incident, Kelvin sat in a small apartment working a sales job at an electronics store, the only employment he could find after his industry blacklisting. He made $38,000 a year, barely enough to cover his bills and the payment plan for the debts he still owed. Every day he thought about Elena, about what he'd destroyed, about the life he could have had. He'd learned through mutual acquaintances that Elena had gotten engaged to a veterinarian, that she was happy, that she'd been promoted to Vice President of Global Innovation at Maxwell Global. She was living the life Kelvin had dreamed of, except she'd earned it through character rather than manipulation. Kelvin's therapist, which he could barely afford, told him that he needed to forgive himself and move forward. But how could he forgive himself for being so blind, so cruel, so stupid? He'd had a woman who loved him unconditionally, who sacrificed everything for his dreams, and he'd thrown her away the moment he thought he didn't need her anymore. The universe had given him a test and he'd failed it in the most spectacular way possible. One evening, Kelvin saw a news story about Maxwell Global donating $50 million to fund business scholarships for students from low-income backgrounds. Elena was in the photo, standing next to her father and her fiancé, radiating happiness. The scholarship was named in honor of her late mother, and Elena was quoted saying she knew what it was like to work multiple jobs while pursuing your dreams, and she wanted to make that journey easier for others. Kelvin turned off his TV and sat in silence. Elena had taken the pain he'd caused her and transformed it into something beautiful that would help thousands of people, while he'd taken his opportunity and destroyed it through greed and vanity. That was the difference between them. That was why she was surrounded by love and success while he was alone in a studio apartment with nothing but regrets. Kelvin finally understood that some mistakes don't get second chances. Some bridges, once burned, can never be rebuilt. And some people, once lost, are gone forever. He'd wanted a trophy wife to match his wealth. Instead, he'd lost a real partner who would have built an empire with him. The $33 million deal wasn't his biggest loss. Elena was. And he'd spend the rest of his life knowing that he'd thrown away something priceless for something worthless. Chairman Maxwell had been right. Kelvin hadn't just failed a test, he'd revealed exactly who he was at his core. And that revelation had cost him everything. What did you think of this story? Drop your comments on betrayal, karma, and second chances. Don't forget to subscribe, hit that like button, and share this with someone who loves powerful stories of justice. Turn on notifications so you never miss our next upload. What lesson do you think Kelvin learned too late? Let us know in the comments below.